Welcome back everyone to Creator and Conversation, and so we are concluding our Live from Dublin Comic Con series now. So for the past 3 episodes you've been hearing conversations recorded at the TASQ room live from Dublin Comic Con. In this final episode we're joined by a familiar name and face to the podcast, Mr. David Leach, Senior Creative Editor at Titan Comics. Now David, for those of you who didn't listen to the first episode, if you go back, you'll hear early on that David joined myself and some of the students at TASQ for an insightful conversation about his career and approach to comics. I had invited him to join me in the TASQ room to take a live Q&A from the audience about what would go into preparing your portfolio as a comic book creator, like what should a professional comic book portfolio look like. And again, David was very candid, very direct, very illuminating in his responses, and also David's first time on the podcast remains one of our most popular episodes as well listened to, so this is a no-brainer to bring David back. And my many thanks to everyone who attended this talk and asked questions, and to David as well for taking said questions. Again, quick show note, this was recorded live at Dublin Comic Con from my phone, so audio fidelity may vary, particularly from questions from the audience, but you should still be able to sit back and relax and enjoy this episode. So without any further pause, I leave you now with David Leach live from Dublin Comic Con. Awesome. Okay. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us back here again in the Creator and Conversation panel. We're joined with David Leach. How are you, David?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm awesome. How many times has this been at Dublin Comic Con now?
I think this is my third.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there was a gap between this and the last one.
COVID really set everything back, didn't it?
Yeah. I think it was COVID when I came before. So it might even been 2019. So it's been about 6 years, yeah.
Wow.
I think it was when, it's when Dean, the Superman, Dean Kane was here. And Tank Girl. And was it Tori, not spelling, but the girl who played Tank Girl. So work it out from there. That's when I was here last. But I've ended up in the same table, in the same hall, on the same floor, which is weird.
Well, in the early days, who here went to the first Dublin Comic Con? So we used to just occupy the ground floor and this floor, and that was it. And we didn't have the auditorium or anything else, and it expanded. So the Geek Garden panel room used to be the main one, and then we had an Artist Alley table, and one year they had the Game of Thrones throne in Artist Alley, and they had the wolves from Game of Thrones there. And I unfortunately had a tray table, and I was like in a dead neck alleyway, and no one was coming near me. It was the worst show. So after that, then I said, "That's it, I'm breaking out into a room." But thanks everyone for joining us here today. So what we're calling this is portfolio preparation. David has been great in that he's done portfolio reviews here at Dublin Comic Con in the past. He's spoken with my students at the Tel Academy Sequential at TASQ. He himself is a great creator with Psycho Gran, and if you've all seen his table, have you been to David's table yet? If not, check it out. It's in Artist Alley after this. But David's great because he's not just an editor. He's an editor who also makes comics, writes, draws. So he's walking the walk, talking the talk. Often at Comic-Con, many people are coming up and they have these questions. Like, what do I have to do? What am I doing wrong? Now, this is not an exact science, folks. It's not 2 + 2 is going to give you 4. And comics is like 2 + 2 is going to give you -9 or something, you know. You can't predict it. But what we can do is share experience of like, well, here's what we would advise from what's gone before, or here's some ideas or considerations based on where you're currently at. I remember once showing you a Phantom comic, and you made a very astute point about the lettering size, and so it stayed with me because obviously you make it in A3 Bristol, but when you scale it down, that brings everything down. So if you're making the word balloon to the same scale as, you know, what you think it's going to be in print, it'll be smaller then when it does go to print because of the scale down. So just little things like that. So what we usually do is we have a conversation throughout the Q&A. In this instance, because of portfolio prep, we're assuming that some of you might already have questions that you want to begin with. So I'll ask this first rather than me going back and forth. I'm just going to see if someone have questions to begin with about portfolio prep to begin with. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead to the left and then back to the right, and then we'll walk our way through. Okay, so go ahead. Thank you very much.
So I had lots of ideas and made a couple of little comics. you like narrow down like what your role or what your niche would kind of be? Not niche, but like role that like if you're going for a job in a comic company, how do you kind of narrow it down?
I mean, like most comic. So I work for Titan Comics. I'm their senior creative editor. It's most people who work in comics who aren't producing comics. They come from an English background, so that they'll have studied English at university and they'll have a degree in English. And that what they do at Titan is traditionally they start off just as the office junior, so handling all the stuff no one else wants to do. And then after they've done that for a while, they then become editorial assistant they become. And then it goes editorial assistant, assistant editor, editor, senior editor, and like that, so onwards upwards. So that's different from producing comics. If you're making comics yourself and you're working for a publishing company, if you're working for someone like Titan or, for example, 2000 AD, it's extremely unlikely, as in zero, that they would hire you to do everything. There's no comic company on this planet that would hire you to do the writing, the penciling, the inking, the lettering, and the coloring. Never going to happen. However, if you were a creator and you created your own comic on your own dime, that's absolutely fine. But then you're creating your own work. But if you're working for a publisher, you would be writing characters for that publisher. So that's a different thing altogether. So you'd either approach a company as a writer or a penciler or an inker or a colorist or a letterer. So those are like 4 different defined roles within the industry. You can rule out inking. There used to be a whole sub thing of inking, but now everybody believes they're inkers. So all pencilers believe they can ink, which isn't true, but never mind. Because digital gives you the ability to think you're an inker. So, but then I've obviously touched my own raw nerve on that one, which is why I'm being a bit belligerent about that aspect of it. But if you want to make your own comic books, then you're a creator and you should make your own comic books, and then you approach publishers in a different way. Then you're approaching them and you want to sell them a finished book, a product. However, the downside of that is you'll never get a development fee. So you won't find a publisher that will pay you a page rate. You'll find a publisher that agrees to publish your book and they will share the profits with you. And of those profits, they will take the lion's share. You will take very little, but your book will be published by a publisher. So that's some sort of kudos. In today's market, don't forget that there's the whole thing now where you can get your own stuff, you can publish your own books, and you can sell them that way. So there's a whole new market. It's become, weird thing is that comic publishing has never been more diverse than it is right now. A lot of people now are actually doing their own stuff and bypassing publishers completely. So that's a way forward.
Thanks for the question. That's brilliant. So, gentleman in the back, I think, had a question.
How many pages does a portfolio have to be?
This is one of those. This is one of those questions that, as an editor, I can look at one page of artwork and look at one panel and know whether the artist is any good. Okay, which sounds a bit arrogant. It's not supposed to. I'm doing it from the point of view that I've been doing comics for nearly 40 years, so I can tell just by one page of artwork if that artist is any good. Having a portfolio, I mean, you don't want to. There's nothing worse than sitting down. If you're doing, I go abroad and I do portfolio reviews, and they'll book you in for 4-hour sessions, and you'll spend 4 hours at a table looking at 20, 30 people, and it's a killer because you start getting like snowblind. So you don't want to overload your portfolio. You should be able to get across how good you are with about 10 pages. That's what you need. You could put more in, but there are rules about portfolios. The trouble is there's a lot of art schools seem to tell students, when you put a portfolio together, put your oldest stuff at the beginning and your new stuff at the end, which means that the poor person who has to go through your portfolio is going through your journey from where you started to where you are now. Without wishing to sound brutal, I could not care less about your journey. I really couldn't. I'm not interested at all. If we met socially, that's different. But if I'm doing a portfolio review, I'm in a professional capacity. I don't have the patience to do that. I want to see what you did last night. If you were drawing sometimes you'll get people come to shows, they've been drawing the night before and they show you the stuff that they drew that night because they're so eager. That's always fascinates me because I want to see what the last thing was. And also you can look at artwork and you can tell where it is. And sometimes you'll find artists that present their portfolios and they mix things up. And you can point out to them, oh, that's an early one, isn't it? And they look at you as, how did you know? And well, if you're doing it long enough, you know. So in answer to your question, you don't need to be too long. Just make sure this is the one thing, okay? One of the things that always amuses me and irritates me in equal measure, I'm going to come across as quite belligerent. And as Owen can point out, I'm not. I'm not belligerent at all, actually. I'm very manic normally. I'm being very controlled for you guys. I've decided that I'm not going to give you the Leach experience because I don't want to ruin your weekend. So I'm being quite conciliatory. I'm being quite gentle and kind. That might change. If I can get back to my point, that would help. Damn, now I lost my point. My point was portfolios and what you look at. 8 pages, 10 pages, that's about right. I'll come back. It doesn't matter. Who cares? I don't know. What was I?
No, that's
Who am I? What am I doing here? What are you all doing in my bedroom?
Well, what happened was you tried to be the nice guy, and this is what happened.
That's true. I did. Suddenly, I did. I ruined it. Jeez, that's okay. I know what's happened then.
But I think that's a great point. So looking at 10 pages, there's not a set number, but the main thing is have your best work.
I remembered.
First.
Yeah. I remembered. This is something really funny. This is a truism. Throughout everything I say, there'll be a lot of truisms I'm going to chuck out at you. This is a very funny one. You as artists will put in work, okay, and there'll be panels that you know aren't any good, okay. You just know it. I do it too. And what'll happen is that people will show me their work, and I'll point out things that are wrong, and people will go, the artist will go, yeah, I know. And I always find that really funny because if you know it's no good, don't show it to me. Because what you want to do is you want to present your best work. You basically want the editor you're showing it to go, oh my God, this is amazing. That's what you want. However, there are lots of things that you need to know, okay? And this is stuff behind. Okay, all right. Because I'm calm, would you lot all like to know the 2 secret rules about getting into comics? If you follow these 2 rules, you will get into comics, okay? You'll end up being a full-time cartoonist. They're very easy rules to follow. And when you hear them, you're going to go, oh my God, of course, it makes total sense. Rule number 1, make sure you're in the right place at the right time. Rule number 2, it's not what you know. It's not who you know, it's what you know. Those 2 things come down to this, okay, is that there is no right or wrong way of getting into comics. In fact, there is no right way of getting into comics. It just happens. If you're any good, it just happens. And I don't know how it happens. And the weird thing is that people get taught comics now at university. Not you, though. Owen is different, okay? Owen teaches it differently. But there seems to be this idea that if you do a course, you're going to end up in comics. That doesn't happen that way. You're only as good as your portfolio. If you have a brilliant portfolio, a really good portfolio, you will work in comics, okay? It's just going to happen. That's important. So it's not what you know, it's who you are. And basically being in the right place at the right time is that one day at a party or when you're packing up someone shopping in a supermarket or whatever it is that you do, you'll meet somebody and it'll be the right time at the right place. I know these sound really flippant, but it happened to me. So it happens to most people you talk to. You listen to their career paths, you always go, oh my God, that's so weird. A series of bizarre coincidences led you to it. I'm going to tell you a very quick story because I love this story, but this is all true. This is how I got my first job working comics. My first job, 40 years ago next year, January the 2nd, I started my professional career. So I had left college the year before in September, okay? And as everybody, all I ever wanted to do, this is important, all I had ever wanted to do was draw comics. I wasn't interested in doing superhero comics because they're all rubbish. And I'm on record for saying that now. I only ever wanted to do humor. I was only interested in doing humor. I wanted to make people laugh, and I still do. That's all I want to do. So I set out from I'm going to do children's comics because that's what's funny. So I went out to try and find a work. And back in the good old days, before the computer ruined everything, and computer has ruined everything, you could actually phone up people and you could arrange an interview and you could go and visit somebody in person and show them your portfolio. And it was fantastic. So I started ringing up people, not going anywhere. Then one day, it turned out that my father knew 2 people who shared an office with a cartoonist called Frank Dickens, who worked for the Evening Standard in London. And he did a strip called Bristow, whatever. A strange office-based strip, little 3-panel gag thing. And so I got to meet him. We went out for lunch, and he was a very boozy man. And most British cartoonists who work in newspapers are boozy. And he spent the whole lunch telling me outrageous stories about the time he'd had sex with Princess Alexandra. Okay? And he was a keen cyclist. Those 2 things were very important. Anyway, at the end of it, he said, listen, I can't help you. He said, but you're a fun bloke. I like you. You need to go and visit a friend of mine. His name's Mel Calman. Now, Mel Calman was another famous British cartoonist, and he had a strip. Well, he used to do Great Big Nosed People. Huge. If you check him out, you'll see him. Anyway, he ran something called the Cartoon Gallery in Lamb Conduit Street. So I went to visit Mel, and Mel went through my work, and he goes, I love your stuff. It's a lot of energy. I can't help you, but I got a friend you should go and see. His name is Bob Godfrey. When you phone him up, tell him that Mel Calman says that Bob should see you. So I find out, and then the great thing about this is that back then, that was up to you now. So all I know, I had bloke's name. His name was Bob Godfrey. I wasn't given a telephone number. I was just told another person. You have to go and do your own research. So I went off and I found Bob Godfrey's number and I phoned him up. He had a studio in Neal Street in Covent Garden. I got through to his secretary. Hello, Bob Godfrey Studios. Can I speak to Bob Godfrey, please? 1 minute, please. On hold. Comes back. Yes, can Bob wants to know who this is? Tell him my name is David Leach and tell him that Mel Kalman says he should see me. 1 minute, please. Phone goes quiet. Phone comes back. A bloke on the phone. Hello? Is that David Leach? Yes. Right. So apparently Mel Kalman says I should see you. And I went, yeah. Well, you better come in then, haven't you? Okay. So I go and see Bob. Now, I didn't really know who Bob was. When I got to his studio in Covent Garden, Neal Street, it was the 5th floor, and went all up the stairs, walked past his 2 Oscars that he'd won for his animated films. And I went and showed him my work. And he went, you've got lovely work. You're an illustrator. I'd love to use you, but I've got nothing for you. So good luck. Oh, okay. Fair enough. So I go home. Christmas Eve, I get a phone call about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Hello, David. Hello. Listen, you still looking for a job? Yes, I am. Brilliant. Come and work for me. January the 2nd, have a brilliant Christmas. Okay. January the 2nd comes along and I turn up at Covent Garden, Neal Street, 2nd of January, okay? London was full of snow, very rare, completely snowed in. Back then also, this is 1986, London was a different place, completely empty. Christmas, New Year's, January the 2nd, deserted. I get to his studio, buzz the buzzer. He says, I'm on the 5th floor. I work my way all up to the 5th floor and I get there. He's sitting in the corner of the room, okay, over there in that corner, and I'm over here and I come up by the window. He looks up, he's dressed in light grey, he cycled everywhere, he's dressed in light grey. He looks up and he went, who are you? And I went, I'm David Leach. What do you want? Oh, you phoned me up on Christmas Eve. Did I? What did I say? You said if I wanted the job, I should come and work for you starting today. Oh dear. I thought, oh no. That drawing board's free, you can have that one. That's how I got my first job. None of that is a word of a lie. That is absolute true. That's how I got my first job. And I worked for him for a year. And it was a wonderful year. His studio was directly opposite Comic Showcase, one of the only 3 comic shops in London. That was opposite his studio. Here on the same road was the best freaking bakery in the whole of London, right? I paid my mum 10 quid a week rent. My travel cost me 5 quid a week. And I got to spend the other £75 buying comics and sandwiches for a whole year. Best job I've ever had in my life. That's how I got my first job. And that is basically being in the right place at the right time. It's not who you know, it's what you know. There you are.
Brilliant. There you go. That's what you all have to replicate now. You know that's.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy.
I've got to go general to the left and then back to yourself. Or just go over to the left first.
I have a question. In your portfolio, should you have more stylized work of your actual drawing and how you draw stuff, or should you focus in on more stuff that's more fine or realistic per se?
So basically, what you're saying is, should your drawing be comic based or let's say life drawing? Yeah. If you're serious about wanting to be a cartoonist, you want to draw what's called serious comics, as in you want to draw superheroes beating each other up, or you want to work for 2000D, you want to do that. That's what apparently is what serious comics are. Then you want to make sure that your life drawing and your ability to draw the outside world is perfect. Well, not perfect, but really, really good. Okay. So as an editor, I couldn't care less about that stuff because that should come through in your drawing when you're drawing comic strips. So when I'm looking at your comic strip, what I'm looking at instantly is how you frame a scene, how you frame a panel, how you frame action, how action flows. It's always important if you're looking at a portfolio to see what they call sequential. I want to see how your action flows across the page. Maybe a sequence, if you have a 4-page sequence, I want to see those 4 pages. I want to see how everything plays out. And in those panels, I want to be able to see the environments that characters are living in. I want to be able to see the geography of the scene. If you're choreographing a fight, how does that fight work across 4 panels? When you're talking, even one of the hardest things in comics is how do you make 4 pages of talking heads interesting? If you've got 2 characters talking, you've got to make that interesting. How do you do that? That's what I'm looking for. So all the other aspects you talk about, like your life drawing, I love looking at life drawing. Life drawing is glorious. Looking at someone else's life drawing is wonderful if you do it properly, because there's the way that the human form is captured. This is beautiful. That's of interest to me only from a point of view as I'm interested in your process. I'm much more interested in what your comic strips look like. That's what I'm going to be looking at. So it's basically, if your artwork is good, that's what's important. Here's another truism, because I think this one is really, really important. And this isn't a joke. This is all true. There is a world of difference between the idea of being a cartoonist and the actual day-to-day job of being a cartoonist. The actual day-to-day job of being a cartoonist is one of the most tedious and boring and hardest jobs of your life, because you aren't just doing 1 page. You aren't even just doing 6 pages. If you were working professionally as a cartoonist for a company like me, if I hired you to do one of my books, I expect this without fail. 22 pages every single month for 12 months. For 12 months. Do the math. I can't do the maths, but basically 22, that's 10, that'd be 220 plus another 240 odd pages of artwork, okay, in a year. That doesn't sound a lot until you're drawing it. What that means is that you are drawing every single day. You're doing 8-hour days. You aren't taking weekends. You're probably not even, I'm not even going to let you have a holiday, if I'm being really honest. If you miss a deadline, I'm coming down you like a ton of bricks. I don't care if you suddenly got problems, if your cat's developed a limp, or whatever. That's just bullshit. You're just basically scamming me, trying to come up with ideas. The idea of what it's like to be a cartoonist is so completely beyond the reality of it. And yet the reality of it is, if you're doing it, it's the best freaking job in the world. Seriously, I've got hairs standing off my arm. Drawing comics, I've done this. So I used to be a full-time cartoonist. Now I work as an editor. So my day job, I'm editing. During COVID, I got furloughed for 11 weeks. And I thought, my God, I got 11 weeks where I'm getting paid. I can do whatever I want. And so I drew a comic book in 11 weeks. It was a 32-page. I wrote it, I penciled it, I inked it, I lettered it, I colored it in 11 weeks. I did 12-hour days every day. I didn't take a break, and it was absolute bliss. My hand at the end of the day would be a cold claw because I've been holding the pen so much. I still have a permanent divot in my finger, okay? That is the joy of it, but it is absolute hard work, okay? And if that's what you want, that's wonderful. But don't be under any misconception about comics. It is not fun. It's not easy. It's goddamn hard work, but it's well worth it. So the idea of being a cartoonist compared to the reality of being a cartoonist are two different things. And it's why you want to do it. If you want to tell stories like I do, and you don't care, I mean, I'm making more money now as an editor than I ever did as a cartoonist. It's only now, after 40 years. It's taken me 40 years. Even though I've been published by loads of people, and I have one life ambition left, which is to have a book in the British Library with my name and my ISBN number. And I am this close to finally realizing that after 40 years of working away. And in that time, I have produced hundreds and hundreds of pages of comic books, and I'm still slogging away. So I'm not doing that to be arrogant. I'm just giving you the absolute, this is what it's like it's a reality check on being a cartoonist. That's it. My brain has said, stop now, let someone else talk.
Nice. That's brilliant. Thanks so much. And sorry, do you have a question?
Sorry, what's point number 2 in the second rows again?
Oh, that's a joke. Point 1 is being in the right place at the right time. Point 2 is it's not what you know, it's who you know. The idea being that it's just everything is serendipity. Everything is just a series of strange coincidences. Life is, that's a great thing when you start looking at everything. There are so many funny jokes in the world. Think about the Titanic. That is hilarious, beyond the fact that quite a few people died. The idea is, okay, a group of people to get together and they say, we're going to build the best ship in the world, okay? It's unsinkable. And that on its freaking maiden voyage, it hits an iceberg and sinks. That is funny. Whatever you want to look at, that is a really funny gag. So what I'm saying, what am I saying? What am I doing? What I'm saying is that life is full of these things. And if you start looking, you start seeing all the humor in the world. And there is a lot of it around. It's just very weird. It's just, you need a very demented sense of humor to find humor in it, but it is funny.
James Cameron's going to be on to you for the remake.
So, this disagree with you there just a little bit, right? So most people, when they get their first job at college, you just accept whatever comes.
Absolutely.
After that, there are 2 paths you're going to take in your career. You either fall from one job to another and just end up where you end up, or you plan where you want to go. So if you want to go somewhere, if you're ambitious enough, when you put the hard work in, that's the magic word, putting the hard work in.
Absolutely.
You will get where you want to go.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're the person that drives it.
Absolutely.
You want it, shoot for the moon. And you know what? If you only get into the space between here and the moon, it's a hell of a long way from the ground, isn't it?
So 2 points, you're absolutely right. 2 points that you raised. One is that I've always been single-minded in my career. So I've been doing this my whole life. I've never wanted to do anything else. I've always been laser focused, okay? I've just gone for it because the most important thing for me is I never wanted to get to be 80 years old and look back and say, I wish I'd done that. So I've always wanted to, everything I've gone for it. So you're absolutely right. There is one caveat to that though, is you actually need to be able to back it up. So just having the raw ambition isn't enough. Likewise, just having raw talent isn't enough either. I have met so many young artists who have been phenomenal. I can't remember the number of times I've met young cartoonists who show me that when I worked at Marvel UK, we had a kid come off the street with a portfolio that blew us all away. We couldn't believe it. We were looking, all of us editors were looking at his work and going, this is incredible. You're amazing. How come you're not working? And so we gave him a script. We never heard from him again. He never, ever reappeared. Just vanished. I met a Spanish artist and she was phenomenal. She had 6 different styles and they were all brilliant. Gave her a script, gave her, please contact us. Never heard from her again. There is something it's very weird. It's not just a raw ability. It's a spark that you need. It's something which is, one of the most important things, I believe this is true. If the worst that anyone can ever say to you is no, don't worry about it. Keep going, okay? Because you'll meet someone that says yes. So many people, when they hear no, they go, oh, okay, and they stop. So you need to be able to go through it. But all that said, if you don't have the talent to back it up, you're not going to get anywhere. So you need an ability. You do need a skill to get you. But you're absolutely right. If you are laser focused, if you are committed to it, and being young really helps, because when you're young, you haven't got to worry about life. You just go for it, go for it, go for it. And then that might help you through.
Ability can be improved. Hard work, determination, and a bit of grit.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You need to have that. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. No, that's it. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Could you ask to talk about the other side? I'm a writer and I know I have to produce work as I'm working through, but you as an editor, how can I get the pitch to you to any,
So I always hate this question because it's so unfair, the answer to you.
I know.
When I look at a cartoonist's work, I can tell from one page if they're any good, and that's brilliant. When it's a writer, I've got to read your sodding scripts, and it's, oh God, honestly. So when I read scripts when I get a script. These are secrets I'm revealing. When I read scripts, I read the dialogue, not the descriptions. I read all the dialogue from the characters because my brain can put the pictures in. I don't need the descriptions. So I read the script 3 times. First time I read dialogue, bang, 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 bang. Then when I finish reading the dialogue, I go back and I'll read the script. I'll read the descriptions. In fact, I'm not even reading descriptions. What I'm doing is I'm counting the panels. If there are too many panels on a page, I'm getting irritated. I worked at Marvel and they taught us some really important rules which have stayed with me. One of the rules is that when you're writing dialogue, never have more than 30 words in each panel, in each balloon, not in panel, each balloon. If you have more than 30 words in a balloon, it starts getting difficult for someone to read it. They start getting bored, they skip out. Also, as a writer, reducing what you write in dialogue down to 30 words is a brilliant thing, because the writing, in the writing, it's the editing that makes it work, not the writing. Because you can write 1,000,000 words, but it's making it work in 30. That's wonderful. That's important. So basically, it's how many panels per page, how many balloons, and how many words in a balloon. Those are the things I look for. And then I'll read the script just all the way through. So it's that sort of stuff. So a lot of the time, this is very weird as an editor, because I'm an artist as well and a writer as well, because I do it all, and I realise that I'm unusual in that respect for many different reasons. I try really hard not to get involved. And this sounds so weird as an editor, but there is a logic behind it. My role as an editor is to make issue 1 brilliant, okay? And I work really hard on issue 1s. I'll work with the writer, I'll work with the artist, I'll make decisions, I'll look at storyboards and all the rest. But there's a reason why I've hired the writer and the artist. It's because I like their work. And because I like their work, I, as an editor, do not want my voice to be heard. I think my voice should not be heard as an editor. I don't want anybody. I recently read a review of a book that I did, and I got named. Not named, I was credited because of my work. And I thought I did a bad job then, because I'm the editor. I don't want to be recognized for that. That's embarrassing, because my role as an editor is a facilitator. I get the scripts and I send it to the license holder. I get the comics come back. I then work with the writer on the notes. Then when that's approved, I send the script to the penciler, and then he sends me storyboards. And I look at the storyboards and I send that to the license holder. Then I get that back. We make changes. Then I give it to the artist, and they blah 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 blah. Okay, so I work hard on issue 1s. I make sure once issue 1's done, I want to leave it alone. What I do then is I'll keep talking to the writer, mainly the writer. Artists are okay. Writers are the ones they're the ones that need help. They're the ones that you want to sort of talk to. Also, being a friend to these guys. I was working with an artist. I'm not going to say his name, but he's rising now through the ranks of Marvel, and he was wonderful. He did an OGN, an original graphic novel for me. and he was having a really rough time. It was during COVID. He lost his father, which is very tragic, and he was separated from his wife. She was in another continent because of COVID. He couldn't get to her. I once spent a day, we did a Zoom call where he and I sat there drawing together. So I was just drawing away, doodling, and he was, and we chatted. That's all we did. So I wasn't on his back, I wasn't doing anything. We just chatted and I was there for him. And I love that experience. So what I'm trying to do when I'm working with certainly with artists, is you want to befriend them, because drawing is a horrible, horrible thing. It really is, because all you have is the voice in your head going, you're shit and you know it, yes you are. Yes, you're shit and you know it, yes you are. Yes, you're shit and you know it, you're shit and you know it. This all goes in my head. You shit and you know it, yes you are, all day long. And at the end of the day, you look at what you've done and you think, oh my God, I'm never gonna draw again. This is crap, I hate it. And then you look at it the next day and you go, oh, that's not too bad. With a writer, that doesn't happen, because the voice in your head isn't happening when you're writing, because when you're writing, the voice in your head is talking and telling you the story. So you don't have that panic, that fear. So with writers, you tend to have discussions about plot points and issues and getting stuck. In terms of your question, how do you get there? It's just keep on writing. The best thing you could do, and unfortunately, the ability to do this is getting less and less frequent. That was a bad use of English, but whatever. 2000D used to do future shocks, and I'd always tell young writers, write future shocks. Do 6-page stories because they're challenging. The trouble with most writers starting out is they whenever you meet a writer just starting, or even cartoonists who've got this epic book, nothing's ever small. Everything's a massive epic. It's galaxy spanning. It's across generations. It's thousands of characters, and it's like, oh God. No one ever just does one story that's 6 pages long. It's always these big things. I always say to writers who are starting out, try and do something small. Just do a small story. Just get a feel for it, then move your way up. It's find yourself an artist, get something, publish it, show it to somebody. It's just battering away at the door. But it's much harder being a writer than an artist.
Just in 6-page stories, this is a way out from comic books. My son is a huge Thomas Tank Engine fan. Reverend W. Aldrich had a really strict set of rules for how many words on a page, how many paragraphs are on a page. Yeah. And he'd start off with the big, and he'd refine it, and he'd condense it, and he'd get it down to it. And part of that was also he started writing immediately after the war. There was a shortage of paper. So every word counted. Yeah. And you needed it to have value. And there is a YouTube thing for you to talk. It's well worth going to listen. So if you do have these big galaxy spanning novels or whatever,
chuck them out.
Go and have a listen to that, right? Because every word above on the page should mean something.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every that's always the case. That's always true. One of the hardest things I've ever had to write. Who knows Ren and Stimpy? Okay, right. I used to write. This was an absolute pain in the arse. I used to write the Ren and Stimpy newspaper strip. Okay, and there were criteria that were given to you by Nickelodeon. One of which was you couldn't do a classic. So gag works in one way. You have the setup, the story, the punchline. You had to write Ren and Stimpy's that were funny but didn't have a punchline. So you couldn't do setup, story, punchline. You had to make it funny without doing that classic thing, and it was a nightmare. But it's really challenging. If you've got to tell I've done Ren and Stimpy, Wallace and Gromit. That was a lot easier because you'd have 7 days, but still 3 panels to do a story in that. That's I'm not going to say skill because I'm talking. That's a challenge which I loved. I did a job where I was given generated cartoon strip, and I had to write the gags to go in with the pictures that already existed. I had to write jokes and that sort of stuff. This sort of stuff is a challenge. That sort of stuff is you get a kick out. The weird thing is that I sometimes think I haven't done very much in 40 years, and I keep being reminded of the things that I've done, and I've gone, oh yeah, I did that, didn't I? You just after a while it just becomes. If you do this as a job, it just becomes one massive thing, which is. That's it. That's all I got. Sorry, my brain just stopped. Anyway, does that help? It's basically just keep bashing away. Just keep bashing away.
You were talking there about I'm an artist and I'm shit and I know it.
Oh yeah.
And I've been around 40 years.
Yeah.
Go back and look at something we did last year and pick it up and go, I did that. That's actually pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I do that also. Yeah, I did that with the book I've just finished. My autobiographical comic book. It's very good. It's 4 issues. It's taken me 25 years to do 4 issues. But I'm very proud of it because it took so long. But I look at the end thing, and there was a point where I stopped drawing for 17 months because I just had enough, and I thought I don't want to do this anymore, and I stopped. And then after 17 months, my brain went, "We got to finish this." And I went back, and it's like, "Oh, this is great, good fun." So it's weird the way it works. I mean, for me, truism time. The hardest thing of this job is writer's block, and it's terrifying because it happens in so many different ways and there's so many different forms of it. And for me, it's the absolute fear of white paper. I have an absolute fear of starting something because once I've started it, it consumes everything. I mean, I'm very lucky that I've been married to the same woman for 36 years and she understands, and it's wonderful. But it consumes me, where I become obsessed, and all I do is the comic and nothing else matters. It's very hard. It's very hard if you're young and you've got a family and you're trying to do comics at the same time. That must be an absolute nightmare. Any more questions? Come on!
We'll actually be wrapping up
Oh,
soon now.
well, there we are
I'll
then.
take the last one here, but
How much is like if you're an editor and you're a discussion page rate, what would be the average page rate now for let's say a penciler?
they're talking the money nowadays.
Talking
They're
money.
talking the money.
Okay, so let me see. So you're starting out. Is this your first job?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I'm going to offer you 40 quid a page pencils. That's not the page rate, by the way. It's just what I'm going to start off with and just see how much I can get out of you. So no, this is true. This is true. I'm an editor, okay? I'm working for a company. If I got you to do me pencils at 40 quid a page, my boss is going to tap me on the head and go, "What a good boy you are." Okay? Because I've just saved my company a big chunk of money. That's not the page rate, though, for a penciler. But that's if I can get you for 40 quid, I'll bloody get you for 40 quid. The single hardest thing about being a professional artist is what do you charge for your work? That is so hard. Remember this, that if you go in high, so if someone says to you, what do you want your page rate? It's going to be very hard for you. Most of the time, we editors will ask the artist, what do you want? And we have a figure in our heads, but we want to see what you're going to start with. So if you go too high, we go, we can't match that. But then we know what we got to pay you. So I'm not going to tell you because he's recording it. But actually, I can tell you if I could remember, because that's the thing. Because the page rate comes down to, like I said, most artists nowadays are doing their own inks, so they get a combined. It used to be that, let's say, for example, if you, for example, were paying an artist £100 a page, which is a terrible page rate, by the way. Also, here's something true: in 25 years, page rates haven't gone up. Even though the cost of living has, page rates haven't, and you're going to find it really hard to find any publisher that will pay you a proper page rate. It just doesn't happen that way. It's just they don't seem to think that cost of living. Apart from Titan, because this is being recorded, who is a brilliant company, and I really respect them and I love them very much. So basically, we're paying you £100. £60 of that would go to the penciler. £40 would go to the inker. If you're a name, that's different. If you're a named artist and you got cred behind you, then it's a different thing altogether. And then if, like I say, if you're a creator owned and you came to our company, then we're not paying a development fee. We're doing a deal with you on the publishing. So we'll cover the printing side of things. We'll do the promotion side of things. And then it would be a profit share. And that's how a lot of companies seem to be going. This isn't true across the board. There are other ways. Remember, there are a lot of publishers now who've entered into comics and they're producing graphic novels. And that's a different thing altogether. Producing graphic novels changes everything because drawing styles have changed, and you look at some graphic novels and they are very badly drawn, but that's another story, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
he's
I'm sorry asking again.
No, it's okay.
So, how would you pitch a book if someone came into pitching a book?
I do it with a 30 words. So, okay, this is a truism. My last truism, then we're going to stop. Have we got time for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
I did back in the 90s. There was a British comic called Toxic, which came out, and it forced 2000 AD to go full color. And it was started by Pat Mills, and all the guys who defected from 2000 AD went off to do Toxic. And for some inexplicable reason, they saw the stuff I'd done, and we ended up, me and my partner at the time, we did a strip in Toxic called The Driver, which was genuinely one of the most appalling comic strips in British comics. Anyway, once The Driver finished, it really was, it was horrific. When it was finished, I came up with a new idea called The Dinner Ladies from Hell, okay? And this is how I sold it to the editor, who just so happened to be Dan Abnett, who's a famous writer. So at one point, Dan was my editor, then later on I became his editor. Anyway, I went to see him and I pitched him this. So this is my idea for The Dinner Ladies from Hell. And you can count the words if you like. The 4 wives of the riders of the apocalypse have 6 days, 6 hours, and 6 minutes to corrupt 7 children with the 7 deadly sins, and only one man in God's cookbook stand in their way. And he went, I love it, we'll have it. Okay? That was about 32 words in total. So that's an elevator pitch. The idea behind an elevator pitch is imagine one day you're stuck in an elevator with Steven Spielberg. You've got one floor to pitch your story before he gets off the next floor, and you want to get your story as precise as possible. If you're pitching a book to a publisher, you want to have an elevator pitch at the top. So let's say your thing is Jack Scroggins Massacres the Universe. That's the title. You'd have a paragraph where you explain how Jack Scroggins does it really quickly, just soundbite, bang, bang, bang. Great. Another elevator pitch would be the way that films that came out after Die Hard were pitched. They'd say, it's Die Hard, but on a boat. I love it. So what you're doing is you're giving whoever's listening, you're giving people
Expectation.
well, not just expectations, you're giving them things that they can get their heads around so they understand where you're coming from, because nothing is new, so they want to know what's coming from it. So you start off with your pitch, you'd have a very quick elevator pitch, bang. Then you'd have, if you're doing a pitch document, you want to have no more than 4 pages, and even that's probably pushing it. You basically, the idea is if us as publishers like it, we're going to come back and ask for more. Oh, can we see this? Can you develop it more? Don't do 20, 30 pages. None of us are going to read it. We couldn't care less. Don't overload it. You want to be able to get your idea as quick as possible. If you're going to do a 4-issue miniseries, do a paragraph for each issue. Bang, bang, bang. Just broad strokes. Just explain the story as quick as you can. But elevator pitch first, then slightly longer, and then contact details. That's it. Some drawings might be nice if you've got some drawings of characters. But basically, you want to grab people. You want to grab them and make them go, oh, I'm interested. Let me have more. And that's the secret. Let me have more. Yes.
Can people just email that to you? How would you get it to them?
Conventions.
Conventions help.
Yeah, conventions, portfolio reviews.
Agents.
Agents.
Agents. Yeah, that's an absolute nightmare. So try and work. So working in book publishing. I had a book that I've done myself now. Well, no, I say I've done it myself. My local comic shop published all my books for me, which is brilliant. I did a book called Monolith, Adventures in Hollywood, all about the monolith in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. The idea was, what if the monolith was a very versatile actor, and the gags are basically monolith auditioning for films. But so it's a picture of a famous film with the monolith auditioning, and it's that. I tried to find a publisher, because if you go to a book publisher, you won't get, forget it, you're not getting through the door. You need to have an agent, okay? So how do you get an agent? What you do is you buy the artist and writer's handbook. It's about that thick, okay? You then do all your research, do all your homework, and you find out which of those publishers might be of use to you, okay? And they give you a description of what they do. And then you write out to all those publishers, and you get a very happy email come back. Thank you very much for your submission. We're back to you within 8 weeks. You'll never hear from them ever again. Forget it, you're never going to hear from them. Okay, so what do I do now? Suddenly people say, get an agent. Brilliant. So then you go through the Artisan Yearbook and you go through the agent section and you make a list and you find all the agents who you think might be of use to you, okay? The ones that handle comic books, the ones that handle graphic novels. And then you write to them and then you'll hear nothing. So I did this for a year of reaching out to people, trying to get Monolith. And all the time, the whole thing was drawn and it was sitting around doing nothing. I had a wonderful day when the secretary of an agent contacted me. Hello, Mr. Smith would like to talk to you. I've got an agent. This is going to be brilliant. We arranged a meeting, and Mr. Smith talks to me. He talks to me for an hour and a half. And at the end of it, he says, this is really funny. It's really well drawn, and you're a very funny guy. You're never going to get it published. And it was like, oh, well, why are we doing this then? Because I thought you could do us some help. Oh, thank you very much. So I did it myself, because I can't find an agent. The reason I couldn't find an agent, and he explained it, and he was very true. If you want to do humor, which is all I ever want to do, couldn't care less about anything else. Everything else is rubbish and boring. You want to do humor comics, that's great. A publisher is going to have, we're going to do 6 humor books this year. That's all we're going to do in a whole range. Actually, they do 4 quarters. And so in this quarter, we're going to do humor books. Mostly they come out at Christmas time because humor books sell at Christmas. We're going to do 6 of them. 2 of those are dad joke books. That leaves 4. 2 of them are written by actors who apparently can be funny. So they're doing 2 of them. That leaves 2 more. That's all we're going to do. And then if you don't fit into that criteria, forget it. So that's why I said at the beginning, there is a whole new future, which is either self-publish or do small press or kickstart it. If you're good, try and kickstart it. That's about it, really.
Awesome.
Oh, and then the last lesson I learned, which I think is a really important one, because it will wrap this up perfectly, it's knowing when good is good enough. So when you're doing anything or writing anything, there comes a point where you have to stop and just finish it, okay? So don't go for perfection. If you try and go for perfection, you will never finish anything, okay? If you do 150, 10,000 word novel or whatever, or you do a 480-page graphic novel, when you get to the end of it, you'll go, oh, well, page 480 looks a lot better than page 1. I'm just going to go and fiddle page 1. And then you'll start again. And you'll never get there because you'll just keep trying to make it perfection. Never aim for perfection, aim for good enough.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you very much, David. I promise to stop singing that song in your fence, making you think it's a song in your head now. So.
What? You're shitting, you know, as well. I could sing the one about marketing, but that involves the C word, so I'm not going to do that.
Hey, we got the recording on. Many thanks again to David for taking the time out at Dublin Comic Con to take these Q&A about portfolio preparation. Again, if you have the chance, follow David online. In particular, check out his series Psycho Gran, his creator-owned series. David, as I said, is not your typical editor. He's also out there making comics, writing comics, drawing comics by himself, as well as editing some amazing IPs with Titan Comics as well. So David Leach, one of the most respected names in editorial in comics, and watch your attention to check out his projects and work as well. And as you can see, if you can see David at a future show, be sure to approach him and pick his brain some further as well. Until next time, this has been a copyright production of Macaulay Consultancy 2025.